We are visiting Fort Langley National Historic Site in Langley, British Columbia. Fort Langley was one of the first Hudson Bay Company's fur trading posts in the area and is over 150 years old. Have you watched Frontier on Netflix yet? Watch it. You'll definitely have more context in what you're about to see. Fort Langley today is a popular local attraction, a living history open-air museum where costume interpreters demonstrate the pioneer way of life. All of the buildings are open to visitors. Let's go check out some of them. This is the storehouse. Built in 1840s, the storehouse is one of the only remaining original buildings in Fort Langley. The rest are close replicas and were constructed more recently. Now we are in the cooperage. Coopers built barrels here that were used to ship salmon, cranberries, farm produce, and other stuff.
But it's a good exercise for me to do because tomorrow I'm going to have to do this for the kids in the fur trade challenge and everything too. So it's good to freshen up my skill set on it too. Put that around these ones are overlapping a little bit, but they weren't before, so all 12 could fit. Yay.
Let's check out blacksmiths. Blacksmiths forged iron tools to trade with Aboriginal people. The iron hardware was also used at Fort Langley and other HBC outposts.
Get down, you lift your piece there.
Oh, that's hot.
It is,
Move
so
like
you can
that.
still see lots of heat in that.
Could you make it look so easy that it's just like it's made of paper, it's curly.
It is so soft.
Yeah.
When it is that hot, if we could hold it in our hands there, I'm just gonna straighten this out for you, just a little bit, and it can be straightened flat. A blacksmith thinks of this, of the material in a very different way from a modern metal worker. We think of it as if it's clay, right? Because it's so soft.
Moldable. Yeah.
And that's what it is. When it is that hot, if I could hold it in my hands, I can take that out and tie it in a knot like a shoelace.
Wow.
It's like really soft licorice. That soft at that side.
One of the buildings was even modified into a children's play area. Kids here can have fun playing with, well, I must say, quite realistic salmon. This is the big house. The big house was home to the forest managers, and surprisingly, it was constructed quite recently in 1958. Behind the big house there are kitchen shelters that have everything they need to prepare food. I just entered the big house and can see some of the interior. This big guy here is Joe. He is telling a story about people who lived here, and I recommend let's hear him out in the entirety because he's an amazing storyteller.
And the first governor of our colony here, a man by the name of James Douglas. They were both Hudson's Bay Company workers, and they were both working up north at the same time. And the story goes that Amelia Douglas, at the time her name was Amelia Connolly, her father John Connolly, kind of put a competition out to these two men. The man who was able to earn the most profits in a season would not only get a promotion, but he would get to marry the boss's daughter, Amelia. As it turns out, Yale won this competition, but his win was short-lived. He was chopping wood the next day, and the blade of his axe came off and fell down on his hand and cut him very deeply. And at this time, the nearest doctor, they were up around Prince George in the north of BC at this time. Nearest doctor was down roughly where Portland, Oregon is today, Seattle. So they had to get him on a horse canoe and get him down to the nearest doctor as soon as possible. They were pretty certain he was going to die. And so while he's gone, James Douglas moves in, starts telling John Connolly he feels really slighted. In fact, maybe he'll find jobs somewhere else. He was a really good worker, so John didn't want to see him go. And then on top of that, Amelia had fallen head over heels in love with him. He was tall, dark, and handsome. He was the son of a Scottish plantation owner and a free black woman from the Bahamas. He was born in British Guiana. So he was a tall, dusky-looking man, very handsome, and Amelia loved him deeply. So she started talking to her father. He relented and allowed her to marry James Douglas. Mr. Yale survives, gets back up north to that fort where he was working, finds out his promotion's no longer his wife is no longer his. So he signs up with George Simpson, who was visiting the fort at that time, comes down here, and eventually becomes boss at Fort Langley. James Douglas did a bit better for himself. He became boss at Fort Victoria, which then became the city of Victoria on what would become the colony of Vancouver Island. He became a governor of that colony, then governor of this colony in 1858, eventually a knight. He became Sir James Douglas. So, a little bit more important, a little more highfalutin than James Yale, but James Yale was still a really neat guy, and the workers respected him a lot. They often called him Yale the Lion, because he was such a tough and really commanded a lot of respect from those men, which is impressive considering he was only 4 foot 10 inches tall. Very small man. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
They say size doesn't matter.
Nope. Definitely doesn't. And especially the force of personality that man had, very few people would withstand him, I would say. Yeah.
There is a separate large building, a servant quarters. The regular servants were living here, but also this building was doubling down as a temporary hotel or Airbnb at the time. Surprisingly, there were quite a number of visitors coming to work from Hawaii here in Fort Langley. This is Walter Knott of Kwantlen First Nations. He told us a fascinating story of Hudson Bay Company's first entry into the area, of ancient cedar trees, and how life has changed for the local tribes since European arrival.
Which you can see through there. And then if you look at it, you're looking at McMillan Island here. You can see the Kwantlen would have resided here. These are the longhouses of the Kwantlen First Nation. All across here. You can see the canoes here, and you can see the canoes all along the beach as well, right? So when the Hudson Bay Company arrives here, one of the reasons they got into the food business is they said you could walk across the river here on the backs of salmon. The salmon.
So much salmon.
So much salmon, right? And so much salmon, local First Nations really have no problems. So this is the inner cedar bark, right? Which you'll harvest. They have a 6 to 8 week window every year that the tree will work with you, and then it'll let you take it off of the tree, right? Did you see the pull at the front of the gate there?
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, that's about 2 hand widths. Right, I know.
So that's made of bark?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is this, right?
Yeah. In the middle of Fort Langley Village is a fireplace, a gathering place where Hudson Bay Company fur traders mingled with gold prospectors, local fort soldiers, and indigenous visitors. And if you yourself feel a bit of adventurous, you can practice your gold prospecting skills right here. We had a lot of fun in Fort Langley, and we think this place definitely is worth the visit. I hope you enjoyed our little tour. I'll see you next time.